Hey class, I want to welcome you to English 1102 Online Literature and Composition. I will be your instructor for the next 15, 16, 17 weeks, about 17 weeks really, of the fall semester. So again, my name is Mr. Wilson. I'm the instructor. And I want to sort of go through Blackboard a little bit. I'm assuming since you're taking 1102, that you've probably used Blackboard for from CPTC in the past, from other instructors maybe during the summer or possibly during the spring. So I'm not really going to go through the where to find Blackboard, that type deal, because I'm assuming you know how to do that already. But if you do need help with that or need a refresher, please reach out and let me know so I can make a video on that in case there's others out there. Because I believe our class size is nearly 25. It might be 25 students overall. So what I want to do is I'm going to share my page that's going to show the Blackboard, and I'm pretty much going to be in our course. So if you want to give me a few seconds here. We'll go ahead and look at the basic setup for a course. So if you look here, I found our course. It's 1102. The CRN number is 20584. It should be the only English course you're probably taking. So when you log into Blackboard, again, it's going to ask you for your username and your password, the same thing that you would use to get onto your Office 365 college email as well. So keep in mind, there is a difference between Blackboard and your student email. So when I send emails through Blackboard, they're going to go to your student email. So some students have a hard time figuring that out or not really realizing that, hey, I thought I could check emails. Why you said you sent out an email? Well, I'm not getting it through in Blackboard. It's because you can send emails through Blackboard. You just can't check emails through Blackboard. That you would have to go through your Office 365 account to see that. So if you look over here, I'm looking at the left-hand side. Basically, you have your basic stuff: homepage, syllabus, announcements, instructor information. If you click on that real quick, it's going to give you some information. My email address, my work numbers. I've actually got two since I have two offices. I'm in between the Golden Isles, Brunswick campus and the new Camden campus. So if you can't reach me on one phone number or one office, try the other. If you're in the Camden area, you can come to the office if that's a little bit more convenient for you. Otherwise, I would say calling is probably a good way to get in touch with me. You can always leave a voicemail if I don't pick up right away. A lot of the reason is because I'm traveling between two campuses, and I also have nearly 6 or 7 classes that if they all make, I'll be teaching those. So really the easiest way probably would be email. It would be the quickest for me to get your questions and be able to send any kind of answer or reply back. I do have some office hours, as you can tell here: Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and Thursday. If you look down to, let's see, we'll just go with if you look at our lessons, as you can tell, week 1 is already up. So again, really week 1 doesn't officially start until Monday. But if you go ahead and click on that, your lesson page and my lesson page are probably going to look too different at this point, because as you can tell on yours, you're probably just going to see the highlighted week 1. You're not going to see any of the gray stuff yet. And of course, as we move along through the semester, you're going to have more weeks, right? There's 17 weeks, basically 16 weeks in the semester. So generally the week is going to go from like Sunday to Sunday. So whatever we have for like week 1 will generally open up Sunday. In this case, it's opened up a little earlier, but you're going to have nearly 7 days to get everything done that you need to get done, as far as the reading, as far as turning in assignments and that type of stuff. So so when it gets closer to, let's say, Saturday or Sunday this coming week, which I believe would be, well, next week rather, the 29th or the 30th, that's when week 2 will start to open up. And then as you can tell with our calendar, once it gets close to September 5th, September 6th, the week 3 and that type stuff will start opening up. So basically, you have about 7 days, give or take, maybe a little longer, 8, to do some of this work and get some of this stuff in. If you click on the week 1 folder, just real quick, as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff here. And it really reflects the reading that we're going to be doing that week. I haven't added, and I will as we move along this week. Definitely by the time Monday comes, you will have an online textbook, meaning you don't have to buy a textbook. It's going to be an OER, what they call an open educational resource. And I'm going to put it under the syllabus here. But if you actually, when we look on the syllabus, it should be already there too. So you're going to have 2 different links to get to your syllabus, or to get to your textbook rather. And anything else that you would need, like handouts or textual material, I will either upload to the weekly folders or I will email them to you as a hyperlink or a document of that nature. So you don't have to go out and buy anything additional for the class. There's really only one textbook, and the textbook that's in your syllabus is the one that we will be using. As you can tell, this week is, each week is going to be loaded because it is a literature composition class. What does that mean? Well, that means it's, 50% literature wise, 50% writing wise. We hope that you take whatever you learned from 1101 last and be able to apply that to some of the reading, some of the genres that we're doing during the next 17 weeks, right? So really how the course is going to be broken up, and we'll look at this a little bit more in the syllabus, is that we have about 4 weeks of fiction or short fiction, short stories. We have about 4 weeks of poetry, and then we have 4 weeks of drama. So if you look at there, you get about 12 weeks. Of course, if you take out Thanksgiving week and the final exam week, everything sort of balances up to equal that, 16, 17 weeks. Usually at the end of each unit, like week 5, you would have an exam and a essay due over poetry or fiction. The second exam will be about week 10. You would have, an exam and an essay over poetry. And then the last exam is really going to be your final exam, but your last paper, which is over drama, will be more or less your research paper for this particular course, and that would be due like a week or so before the actual final exam. But again, as we look at the syllabus here momentarily and the assignment checklist, you will start to see how things are going to go throughout each week. Again, a lot of this stuff is for your information, right? It's optional in a lot of ways, like, guided reading questions. That will help you with the 2 stories that we're reading by Chopin and Hemingway next week. Do you have to turn those in? Not necessarily, right? They're just there to help you keep up with the reading, to help you when we start doing discussions. Because my plan is to give you a video or so with an additional videos and documents each week, right? I'm going to try to at least do 1 video and then have some sort of a live Teams meeting, which you should be getting some information about that here by the end of the week, where you can sort of sign up, join if you can, right? I can't really make everything mandatory as far as these meetings, but it's going to be helpful if you can join some of these live team lectures, because as a class, we can sort of, simulate what we would do if it was a face-to-face or a hybrid class where, we would have discussions. We can ask and answer some of these questions. We can look at some of the guided reading questions, because you can only do so much with, handouts and documents and YouTube videos, and even me up here talking. You probably don't want to hear me lecture on and on and on. That's why it's a little easier to have some interaction, and Teams will help provide that. Now, again, if you can't make it, that's, unfortunate, but we do understand, right? Because a lot of folks, the reason why you're taking an online course, it's probably plenty. You probably have either a job, you've got kids that maybe you're homeschooling because of the virus. It could be, COVID related. The only issue is with that, is that, to try to keep up with the reading, to ask questions. You can always email me, you can always reach out. But it's really to sort of stimulate and emulate the same type classroom discussions we would have had this class meet, let's say, on a Monday and a Wednesday or Tuesday, Thursday. So that's the only thing. I don't want you to feel sort of shortchanged just by, well, he's just throwing up a bunch of videos and documents on the blackboard. Yes, I'm putting that up there for, everybody's enrichment, but I'm also offering these lectures that you can tune in and join live via your phone or your computer weekly as well. So just keep that in mind. If you can make some week, great. If you can't, we'll try to record it and upload it so you can kind of see what's going on, especially if it's a big enough group that we do sort of experience that whole back and forth with lecture and question and answering. As you can tell, again, I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about this in my next video next week, but during week 1, I'm already giving you the essay 1 topic. You basically download it and read it. Obviously, it's going to cover some of the fiction pieces that we read. So don't act like you have to decide something, in 2 days of the first week. You basically have 5 weeks to prepare for the fiction exam and 5 weeks to prepare for the essay. And as we go from week 1 to 2 to 3, we'll talk a little bit more about both the exam and the essay. But I just wanted to throw that out there to give you enough time to start brainstorming and to start thinking about, as you read some of these pieces of short fiction, of what maybe you would like to write about. We give you some fiction elements. Basically, you click on it, gives you a link. We talked about sort of the guided reading questions. Again, a lot of this stuff we're going to focus in more next week, but I just want to sort of show you the layout. Some weeks may be not as lengthy as this one appears to be. And again, a lot of it is just you click on it and it takes you either to a PowerPoint, it takes you maybe to another video, but it's there to give you more enrichment, especially if you can't reach me. Let's say you're trying to read some of this stuff at 6 o'clock on, Tuesday, and I got a class somewhere, but you can sort of look at some of these slideshows and notes to sort of get you through. You will have a quiz. And again, when we look at our syllabus, is going to detail what's sort of going to be due week from week. I mean, not every week you're going to have a quiz. You may have a quiz one week and then you have some sort of writing activity the next week. So I sort of divide that stuff up. So you're not always getting quiz after quiz after quiz. And the same thing with the writing. But the quizzes and the writing activities that we do have a lot of purpose. One, it tells me, are you keeping up with the reading, right? Obviously, if you're not reading, if you're not keeping up with, some of the questions, if you're not trying to reach out and get help, it's going to be obvious when you take the quiz, right? The quiz is not there necessarily to throw you up intentionally. It will if you didn't do the reading, obviously. So it's going to tell me, one, maybe you need to be a little bit more focused on the reading, and maybe you need to reach out and get the help you need or attend some of these live lectures that we're going to do. They also serve as study guides for the upcoming exams and papers. So you might want to keep some of these questions and know that there's improvement, right? If you don't do so well on the first one, know there's a few more throughout the next 17 weeks that you're going to have. So as long as you don't do poorly on all the quizzes or all the writing assignments that we do, your grade should really be strong heading into a lot of the exams and the papers, where that's where really the meat of your grade is going to come from when we look at our syllabus here. So let's look at the syllabus. And I'm just going to briefly go through that. As you can tell, we have the core syllabus, and then we have the assignment checklist with due dates. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here momentarily, because I'm going to pull that up as well to sort of help you out to understand what is due, when it's due, that type of stuff. So let's go ahead and pull up the syllabus. You should just be able to click on it. It's going to download. Okay, here we go. Pull this up. So again, my name is Patrick Wilson. That's one of my, again, that's basically my GI office number. But if you look back at that instructor information, you have both of them. Again, usually the easiest way to probably reach me would be email. And I try to get back to you within a 24-hour period. If it's, during Monday through Thursday, if it's something really quick and easy I can answer, I will try to send you something back relatively quickly. If it's something that takes a little bit longer, usually it'll probably take me a good day or so, if that, depending on how much other emails and other things that I'm having to do for that particular week. Generally from Friday to Sunday may take 2 days, or holidays it may take a little longer. That's not to say I don't look at them. Again, if there's something I can answer relatively quickly and send back, I will. If it takes me a little bit longer, I will try to accommodate and get back to you as soon as possible. Just know that if you do send an email, chances are you will get a reply within at least a 24 to 48 hour period, unless there's just something catastrophic going on where we can't get back into each other. The full course description, again, I'm not going to sit here and read everything on the syllabus. The syllabus is long enough. It's 10 pages. You can go through and read it on your own. I just want to sort of hit the high notes. And basically, what we do with 1102 is, again, like I said earlier, you take the grammar, you take the writing genres and the styles that you should have learned from whoever you had for 1101, and you take that type of ability and those skills and you apply it to really the three major genres that we look at in 1102, which we start off with short stories or short fiction. We move into poetry and verse, and then we finish out the course with drama. So, and there's argumentation, there's exposition, there's persuasion, depending on how you style and set up your essays. And I give you, a good bit of choices to approach, different lenses, different styles to look at when you think about picking a particular essay topic. And when you look at the week one essay topics for the short fiction, you're going to see about 7 or 8 different topics that you could choose from that should fit, anybody's style. Again, just you want to pick one and sort of brainstorm and start doing some of the, drafting techniques that you learned from 1101. And you can send me drafts, right? I welcome drafts of your essays. Being that you have 5 weeks starting the first week, it may take you a week or 2 to really start brainstorming and get an idea. But I would say probably about week 3 and 4, you really need to be drafting the paper and probably sending me drafts. If you know anybody in the class, or if you want to go through the email, you can send your peers some drafts too. There's also Smart Thinking, which is a 24-hour free tutorial that this college offers. I would definitely utilize them. So, you have many different avenues to travel down to get help on your papers, which I would definitely use, so you can get the best possible grade that you can on your essays. Because again, each essay and each exam increases in weight as it relates to points and stuff as we move along, and we're going to see that here momentarily. All right, so we do have a special little message about the COVID-19. This is not really going to impact this 1102 online course as much because it is online. But again, if you have something that you're taking a class that is hybrid or it's sort of a face-to-face in nature, you might want to read this special course procedure before attending school each day or each week that you do attend, so you can be prepared about that. And a lot of it is, make sure that you strongly suggest that you wear a face mask, you use hand sanitizer, you practice social distance when you can. You don't run the halls, as you once did maybe before the virus. And you sort of get to where you need to go, and you get back to where you need to go. Prerequisite, co-requisite, as you can tell there, you need at least a C or higher from 1101 to be in the course. Learning outcomes, there's 7. Again, I'm not going to necessarily go through all these. I know you can read. A good bit of the course is to identify, analyze the historical, structural, psychological, philosophical points of short stories, of fiction, of verse, poetry, drama, that type stuff. and also use Galileo and some of the other research databases that our college offers as it relates to your research paper. So we will talk more about the research paper after the midpoint of the course, pretty much after exam 2 and paper 2 are turned in and finished. It's really sort of that last 4 or 5 weeks that we really talk about the research paper, because that's when we're dealing with drama anyway. The computer policy is here if you want to click on it. I'm not going to go through that really right now because I don't think too many people have that many issues with the acceptable computer and internet usage policy. But basically what it, sort of a Cliff Note version is that you don't want to leave your computer open, especially, if you're logged on to anything related to the college, because anybody can come around and look and snoop and take pictures and that type of stuff. You don't want to leave, if you're paying bills or viewing your checking account, you don't want to just leave that stuff open for anybody, especially, let's say, if you're at McDonald's or Starbucks, anybody can come in and, snap a picture, and then, before you know it, the next day or so, your bank account's cleared out. So you want to be careful of that. The other thing is, just when you're using the college internet or Wi-Fi, you don't want to be on any sites that you're not supposed to. One, it's, whatever you do on your time is your time. You're using somebody else's Wi-Fi and somebody else's computer in a lot of ways if you're coming to campus. And it's never a good thing because usually you do get caught. There's ways to track you and find out what's going on. And there's a lot of, if you actually click on the hyperlink here, a lot of stuff comes with hefty fines, $10,000, sometimes more, or jail sentences. So, you don't want to get caught up in a predicament where you can't pay the fine, but you have to serve jail time, or vice versa. It's just, for the most part, most of us are adults and we know how to approach how to use our computers, right? We know what to search for and what not to search for, especially since we mostly use them at work anyway. So just be smart about the computer policy, and don't do anything that you would be embarrassed to, let's say your mom or dad would find out about it. Just be careful about where you're going and what you're doing. The course materials, really what you're going to need is you would probably want to have a working computer, working internet, obviously, be able to check your email to get on the Blackboard on a weekly or daily basis. As it relates to multiple folders, pens, paper, that type of stuff, really that's up to you. You probably want to keep your work in some sort of a neat, organized area so you can find it, especially if you're taking multiple classes. I would definitely recommend picking up a thumb drive or a flash drive so you can save your essays and save your work, because there's nothing worse than, lightning hits the house and you're working on a paper 3 or 4 days before it's due, and all of a sudden now your computer and your internet's shot and you haven't saved anything. So now you either have to find another computer and working internet and quickly type up that paper, or you're probably going to have to suffer your first zero, which is never good. And we're going to talk a little bit about what zeros mean in the course too. So always save your stuff. If need be, you might want to email, attach your work to an email and send it to multiple email accounts, especially if you got a Gmail account. If you got, social media stuff like Facebook and Twitter, you can actually upload your documents and send it to yourself that way as well. So I would definitely save it multiple times, but also send it to multiple emails in case you need to get into one and get locked out of another, or whatever the case may be. At least you'd have another copy that you could sort of pick up and go with instead of starting over from scratch. As it relates to the dictionary and thesaurus, you can find free version of those online. MLA handbook. You should have learned a little bit about the MLA format as it relates to setting up essays and in Word, but you also should have learned how to properly quote, probably more than likely prose writing, which is like everyday newspaper, journal writing, fiction writing, that type stuff. Where the MLA is really going to come into play is going to be learning how to quote properly, verse, drama, how to use verse and drama, maybe intermixing with prose writing. We will get a lot more with MLA as it relates to the research aspect of the course, which would be sort of, back in November. But, in the meantime, learning how to quote, short stories and poetry would be also a good thing. And we will take there'll probably be a lesson or so sort of as a review to do some of that as it gets closer to those particular papers, the poetry essay and the short fiction essay, just to make sure that how to properly, put in textual evidence. Here is your textbook. And again, I'm going to provide a link on the actual Blackboard page underneath the syllabus, like I said. But if you sit here and click, it will basically take you to that particular work. And let me see if it's going to pull up for us. Hopefully it will. Just to give you an indication of what it looks like. You have this, which is one version of it. It doesn't really have the page numbers, but if you look for the author and the actual work and click on something, let's say we're looking at this Frost poem, it will take you there. So that's one way that you can do it. I think the actual second link is the one with the page number. So that might actually be the one that's useful. So let's see if I can bring this over. It looks like this. It's more or less a PDF file. You want to make sure that you follow the page numbers. Sometimes like here, they may not necessarily link up. I think here they do really well. So when there's a story that you need to read for a particular week, you're going to have a page number if it's in our book. If it's not in our book, I will give you the hyperlink or the web link that you're just going to have to click on and use that, because some of the stories that we will be reading will not be in this particular book. But again, I'm going to provide that stuff for you because we can find other means of getting those to you without you having to go out and buy additional materials. Classroom procedures. Really with this, because it is online, you just have to keep in mind the college does have an attendance policy of 10% or no more than 3 days. So how does that relate to an online course? Well, basically with an online course is you have to log in and submit work within a 7-day period, meaning if you just log in on Monday and watch a video, or just log in just long enough to take a breather and then log out, you're not basically on there more than 5 or 10 minutes. It's going to say that you logged in, but the problem with that is you didn't turn or didn't contribute to anything during the whole week. So if you missed 7 days, meaning you just log in but don't do anything, more than likely you're going to be dropped, because it's telling me that you're just logging in, you're not doing anything, or what you are doing is just logging in to think that, hey, he's not going to notice, he'll give me credit. But the thing is, when we look at our schedule, there's going to be something due about every Sunday or so. So it's really going to be a disservice to you if you took the course for a reason. One, either you need it for a particular requirement in your field of study, or maybe you're interested in the course, whatever the case may be, but somebody paid money for it. So you're interested in that aspect of it. You should be invested week to week in what we do. And you should be invested in your own GPA and your grade. So again, if there's something going on with your computer, if you're having issues logging in or that type deal, you need to try to call the advisor. You need to try to call the school. You need to try to, troubleshoot to get, let me know as much as you can. I might be able to help you there to get you back online or something. But, in a lot of ways too, you sort of know how well your computer is at this point. If it's a lot of computer issues beyond the school's problem, you want to, think about trying to do a hybrid or a face-to-face class at some point, because if you're going to have a lot of computer issues, this is one particular course that you really can't afford to have computer issues every week, right? Because something is being graded every week. So you'd want to be online. You want to have a fast working internet and fast working computer as much as possible. Um, so keep that in mind, right? If you don't turn anything in within a 7-day period, you could be dropped. So don't do that, because I'm sure when you signed up for the course, you didn't sign up the course to fail it. You want to do the best you possibly can, so you can get credit and move on to the next big thing, right? So um, please talk to me, reach out to me if there's an issue maybe I can help you with. But other than that, I mean, it's really going to be your responsibility to keep up with the work, to submit the stuff on time. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about what that entails here momentarily. Students with ADA section or 504 disabilities, if you got legal documentation, if you need extra time on, say, a test or exam, generally that's already built in because it is an online course. But if you're taking another course that that is sort of a hybrid or a face-to-face, you want to get in contact with our special service director in counseling, Cassie Montgomery. Her phone number is here, as well as her email address. She needs that material and those documents before we can really provide you any accommodation throughout the semester. So make sure she gets that as quickly as possible if need be. Here's the grading scale. It's basically a 10-point grading scale that most of you are familiar with. Anything 0.5 or higher round up to the next whole number. So like an 89.5 would be a 90. But if you have an 89.4, you would just have an 89. So most folks want to make a C or higher in the course. One, because it gives you credit. Anything, D or lower is not necessarily the greatest thing. Depending on your program of studies, sometimes a D would be acceptable. Not too many people are really proud of making D's, but definitely F's, right? You're going to have to repeat a course if you make an F. Like I usually tell my classes, it's really easy to get the D and F. Just don't do anything, right? Palm all the quizzes. Don't turn any papers in. Don't do any really well in the exams. Don't read anything. Don't show up for any of the lectures that we do. Just don't do anything. So it's really easy to get the D's and F's, which again, I hope nobody does. B's and C's, it's not as easy to get B's and C's. You do have to put a little bit more effort and work into it. But if you're one of those that writing is not your thing, you don't like poetry, you don't like drama, you don't like fiction, you just have to take the class to meet a requirement. I do understand that, because again, at the end of the 17 weeks, you're not going to come out and be the next playwright like Shakespeare, right? We're going to try to get you able to think on a critical level, analytical level, to be able to talk about some of these works, to use the resources like the Galileo and like some of the databases to come up with reasonable arguments and persuasions, not only in your language as you kind of discuss some of this stuff orally and verbally, but also in written form. So I understand, right? Some of us like the literature, some of us don't. But the thing is, you're in the class for a reason, so you want to make sort of the best out of the situation, right? So again, reach out. I like to say that I'm an easy B and C. I mean, obviously that's doing a little bit more work, taking a little bit more effort, having a little bit more pride than trying to just get the D and the F. I will say though, getting the A is probably a bit of a challenge, and it should be for all classes. This is not one of those easy A classes. 1101 really isn't a easy A class. So to get an A in this particular class, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. You're going to have to, come through a little bit more, right? You just can't throw anything on paper and throw it in and say, well, I did that in high school and I always got, pretty good grades. Well, we're not high school. 1102 English is really a sophomore level English class at a college university. And that's how we're going to treat it, or at least that's how I'm going to treat it as such. So if you do earn the A, great. I mean, you really worked hard to get it. It's not impossible to get an A. I do have probably more A's than most, but usually they worked to get that A. It's not one of those things that I just, throw out lightly. Again, I probably have more B's and C's in 1102 than I have A's, but that's not to say I don't have A's. I do have A's. But again, it's going to be up to you how much effort you want to put in as far as letting me see your drafts, right? When it comes to essay one, essay two, and research paper, because that's really the bulk of your grade, as you can tell down from this little chart. The fiction exam and paper is going to be 14% of your grade. Poetry exam and paper is going to be 16. Research paper is a big 20, right? Final exams, 18. Reading quizzes and the weekly blog posts or discussion boards are going to be 16, which all equal up to 100. So really the exams and this weekly stuff, like I was getting at, the quizzes and the discussion boards or / the blogs, that's 16% of your grade. So if you really look at that, that's like saying 16 points out of 100. So you want to do well on those because it's something that I will be grading on a weekly basis. So let's say this first quiz, right, coming up at the end of week 1, for whatever reason, you just don't do it or don't do well on it, depending on how low the grade is. I mean, obviously, if you make a 0, it's going to be like saying, okay, now you started at 100, but now, bam, 100 from 16. That's sort of where you're at this point. So just be mindful of the zeros. It's like each time you get a 0 on an assignment in here, it's like taking 20 points off your overall grade. So if you get, 1 0 early on, you're basically at an 80 now. If you get 2 zeros, you're at a 60. If you get 3 or more zeros, you're pretty much failing. And it's pretty hard to come back, especially when we don't have a lot of assignments, to pull that grade back up. And you usually have to double or triple. Let's say you got 3 zeros. Well, basically your grade's probably going to be about a 40 at this point. So you're probably going to need to make 10 or 15 100s just to sort of pull that 40 back up to about a 60 or 70, which is basically DC range. And a lot of times, depending on when that 40 happens to you, we may not have that much time in a semester or that many assignments left. So you want to have, some caution there. Everybody has a bad week. Everybody has a bad day. But you just want to make sure that you give yourself enough time that you should be able to come back and, resurrect that grade if possible. I mean, if you get to week 8, which is about the midpoint of our semester, about the second or third week of October, and you have a 42 in the class, probably would do a little bit of soul searching and think about possibly dropping the course and taking it again when you can be fully focused on the course. Because if you're not doing so well during the first 8 weeks, the last 8 weeks, as you can tell, really is going to be research paper, final exam. It's the heavier stuff. It's the stuff that, if you didn't do so well up to that point, chances are your grade's not going to stay at the 42. It's going to get lower and lower each week. And so if you drop before sort of the midpoint, before it's past time, without any kind of academic penalty, you won't have to pay some money back and that type of deal. So hopefully that won't happen. Usually I don't have too many people that drop, like I said. They usually push through and come out with a pretty decent grade. I've had folks, just like anybody else in any other class, I've had my fair share of people making D's and F's too. But, sometimes when they don't reach out and get the help, when they don't want to communicate with you, that happens, right? So I try to reach out and communicate with everybody, especially when I see things starting to go south. I try to pull you back, reel you in a little bit if I can. But at the end of the day, we're all adults here. So you take out whatever you put in is what you're going to get at. So, and that's usually how it is with anything in life, with your job, with your family, that type deal. Looking at the plagiarism and cheating policy, we'll talk a little bit more about this as it gets closer to some of the papers, right? I mean, obviously the quizzes, you want to be careful about how you're approaching stuff. If it's obvious that you cheated or plagiarized, let's say you bought a paper or you copied and pasted a paper from a peer or somebody 2 or 3 semesters ago, even if it's from another college from another state, major essays and stuff you're going to be submitting through Turnitin or Safe Design, which is a plagiarism program. If it's out there, it's going to find it. And really, you can't say, "Well, I didn't know they copied me." It's going to give us a lot of different material to work with, and chances are, like I said, it's usually a 99.9% chance that if you get flagged for plagiarism, it's not going to work out too well for you, because we're going to give you basically the side to side view of your paper and what you cheated or copied or bought or whatever. And usually, within the first 2 minutes or so, it's going to be quite clear that you were in the wrong and that the program was right. But hopefully we won't have that talk again. Usually the first offense on an assignment that's been plagiarized, or if you cheated on a quiz or something like that, and we have document proof that you cheated or plagiarized a particular work or paper, you will have a 0 on it. So again, going back to the zeros, it really, it damages your grade, especially if you get too many of those. The second offense for cheating or plagiarizing a project or a paper or a test, you're just going to fail the course automatically, no matter what your grade is. So hopefully, usually most folks, if they do get caught up in this stuff, they usually learn from the first offense, because they realize, hey, man, this 0 is really damaging my grade. It took me down 20 points. I don't want to do that again. So they usually come back and get the help to, help improve the grade and do the right thing. So not too many people usually have to come face to face with the second offense, but for those that do, you usually, automatically you're going to fail the course, so you're going to have to retake it. But usually you have to go before a board of, at the college, usually the president, a couple other people involved, and then they usually determine whether they suspend you for a couple semesters. Sometimes it could be for a year or two, or if they just want to bar you from the college, period, just because, it's a big offense to cheat or to plagiarize somebody else's work that's not your own. And plus, if you're taking other classes, they sort of start putting that microscope on you a little bit more, and they start looking at other classes. Hey, you got a 92 in math. How did you really get that? Did you not cheat or have somebody, online do your own homework for you? So just be careful of that. Tutoring, we do offer tutoring service. I will offer some face-to-face tutoring, probably in both locations, at the Camden County site as well as the Golden Owl site. The deal is with tutoring this year, because of COVID-19, you would have to set up an appointment, meaning you'd have to email or call me, and we can sort of work together with our schedules to see what works best for both of us. So you would have to, sign a medical form to come, letting everybody know that, hey, you're not sick, you don't have COVID, that type deal. And you would have to wear the proper PPE. So you'd want to bring your gloves, your mask, whatever the case may be. The other thing that might be easier, just depends on, how spread out everybody is, would be the web-based tutoring, because it's free and it's 24/7. It's called Smart Thinking. Some of y'all probably use that, maybe, I hope, with 1101, with your research papers and maybe some of your other essays. You would just click on this link. It would sort of go through the steps. You need a username and a password, and the username and password is a little different than the username and password to get onto, let's say, Blackboard or your college email. So you'd have to, use something else. But once you get on, generally you can upload your work. And I would strongly suggest, right, as it gets closer to paper 1 or paper 2, the research paper having to be due, I would go ahead and send Smart Thinking a few drafts. And I would also, wait for them to give you some feedback, correct that, and then send it to me. Because really, the more eyes that look at your work, the better the work is going to be overall. Even if you don't send anything to me, I would definitely utilize Smart Thinking as much as you can. Again, sending me drafts are really optional, as we will see on our our checklist for the assignments. But I will say this: those that usually send me and Smart Thinking drafts of everything usually come out with not only the higher grade on that particular assignment, usually the higher grade in the class. So there's benefits to sending drafts to me and Smart Thinking. Let's see. Proctoru, we will probably talk a little bit more about that as it gets closer to the final exam week, but you will have to have an basically it's a free account, but you would have to get a Proctoru app and stuff uploaded or downloaded on your phone or on your computer. At some point, you would need to have a cheap camera or borrow a web camera, because that's usually how Proctoru monitors you during a particular final exam. So there's no cheating involved in that type deal. So again, there may be some issues with that just because of how COVID and stuff has been over the last few months. But as it gets closer to December, I should have a better idea if we're still going to, if the college as a whole will use Proctoru, and I will be able to give that information out to you. But again, since it's first week, you can sort of go ahead and look through some of this stuff. It kind of gives you the required materials that you're going to need before having a proctor event. So if this is not your only online course, you're pretty much probably going to have to do the Proctoru for your other online courses too. And they could have the proctor event during midterm, right? So really what we have to do is give you a choice of one proctor event throughout the semester. So it can either be, most folks use it at the final exam stage of the game, but some folks also choose to do the midterm. So for us in this particular course, we're going to do a final exam. Let's see, campus security. Since most of you are online, you're probably not really going to have to worry about campus security, but there's some numbers there. Anything that may change in the syllabus, right? We just never know. For the most part, hopefully it's not going to be so much COVID related since we're already online, but we're still in hurricane season. So there could be a time that we have to evacuate for a couple of days or a week. If something does, happen, I will try to make sure that everybody knows that change in a timely manner. Usually I will put an announcement on Blackboard, or I will send an email out to everybody through their student email account. Usually when I make a change, it's for the better of the entire class, meaning I'm not going to look at this syllabus one day and say, well, man, they only are doing really 3 papers. Maybe I should go ahead and add essay 4, 5, and 6 on there somehow. Usually I'm not going to add stuff. It's going to be moving stuff, further back or taking stuff away a little bit. But for the most part, when we look at the syllabus, everything is sort of in play and will sort of stand as is unless there's something, catastrophic that happens. Laptop, smartphone policy, don't really need to worry about that so much because it is an online course. Late work and makeup policy, usually because this course is a fast-paced nature, meaning you have 7 days to do 1 week, and then 7 days to do the next week, and then 7 days to do the following week. We really don't have enough time in a semester to, entertain late work and makeup work. Due dates are there for a lot of reasons. They're there for helping us keep our grades, or helping me keep your grades daily updated, right? Posted. They're there to help you get the feedback you need from 1 week to the next. They're there to help you possibly, as a study measure, study guide, especially if you're answering quizzes and that type of stuff. You'd want to have that stuff back in a reasonable manner of time so you can study for, exam 1, exam 2, the final exam, that type of deal. So that's why I usually don't entertain late work or makeup work. So stuff is due when it's due. Please get it in. You don't have to wait to the actual due date. If you think you're comfortable and feel confident about where things are, you can turn in earlier if you want. If you're sick, like you got the flu, you got COVID, death in the family, you have some sort of legal documentation from a lawyer, from a doctor, you can scan that stuff and send it, then we can talk. But if there's 25 of us in this particular class and everybody gets wind, and it usually happens if I give one extension or have somebody make up a quiz a week later, somehow everybody else in the class knows about it by the second week, and then I get all these emails, hey, can I have an extension here, or can I do this makeup later? And what generally happens when that happens is that nothing gets graded and everything is sort of off the tracks, because everybody has different demands and different reasons for why they can't turn in a paper on time. So that's why we do the deadlines as they are. But again, if there's something drastic, reach out. You don't necessarily have to go in too much detail, but just let me know, right? And then we could work out something that would work in your schedule. But again, until I get something, right? If it's late, it's going to be a 0. So just know that. It's not just going to have a blank spot in your actual file. I have to put 0s by policy. If I don't have something that I can grade, it becomes a 0. I think we talked a little bit about the email, expectation of the instructor. This is the course schedule. And again, I give you some dates of some big things that happen throughout the semester: last day of class, final exams, holidays, that type deal. And then we start off with August, right? And we really only have, about a week and a day in August. But as you can tell, I give you sort of the dates. It goes from about, a Monday to Saturday or Sunday, is generally how the course is going to be run, about a 6 or 7 day stretch there. And I give you sort of the topic for that particular week. I give you the author and the story. I give you the page number if it's included in your book, in that OER book that we looked at earlier, or I will say check Blackboard for the link. So if you look for week 1, we're talking about plot, we're talking about setting, we're talking about Chopin's The Story of an Hour. As you can tell, it's only basically about a page long. It's a really short story. Hemingway's Soldier's Home is a little bit longer than the page. And you're going to start realizing that each week, some stories are going to be shorter than others. So like next week, the Marvell piece and the Crane piece, they're both what you could consider novellas. One's about 30 pages long and the other one's about 20 pages long or so. So you got almost 60 pages of reading next week. So I would probably, the link for week 2 is going to be opening up probably Saturday or Sunday, either the 30th or the 31st. I would probably, if it was me, and especially if I didn't necessarily like reading long, lengthy pieces, I would go ahead and get started on reading some of those once they start to become available, because as you can tell, we have a quiz the first week, which the quiz is going to cover basically the Chopin and the Hemingway piece. And again, usually how I do my quizzes, they're usually 10 questions. I usually split them up. Like, if you're having a Chopin, there might be 5 questions on Chopin, 5 questions on Hemingway. They can come in a variety of different styles. They could be short answer. They could be matching. They could be true and false. They could be quote identification. And again, a lot of times when I do the quizzes that way is preparing you for the big exam. And I will give you a review sheet for the exam as it gets closer to week 5 to show you what I mean by that. So the quizzes are there for a reason, not only to help you with exam 1, but it's also going to help me and you. It's going to determine whether, hey, do I need to read more? Do I need to spend more time on this particular lesson, that type deal? Because really the quizzes are not there to throw you off, but they will if you don't do your part in those 7 days each week that we have. If you look at week 2, we have a blog and writing that's due. I talk a little bit more about that as we get closer to week 2. Week 2 and week 3 both have the blog and writing. If you look, week 4 has the quiz, the second quiz, and then week 5 we basically have the exam and then the first essay to do. So it sort of follows that format. If you look through October, November, and then we have really 2.5 weeks of December. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much the syllabus. Let me click over real quick and show you the assignment checklist. Again, you're going to find this stuff in your syllabus. It's going to tell you what's due, but the beauty of this thing is it sort of cuts out all the extra stuff and gives you to the point, right? What is due? When is it due? So if you look, anything that's in black text is basically gives you that 1 week to finish. So if you look here, it's basically the plot setting, the stories. You have basically from Monday to Sunday to wrap up any kind of a deal that you're having to read. The stuff that's bolded and red generally are the things that have a due date attached to it, and it's the stuff that will be graded. So the first quiz is due Sunday, August 30th. I give you until 11:59 to do it, right? You'll find additional information under, again, the week 1 folder. So make sure you're clicking on that. You're downloading, you're saving stuff, you're taking notes, because the deal about the weekly folders, at the end of 1 week, it's going to shut down. So whatever that you needed that you didn't get that was in there sort of disappears. So that's why I would say download, print out, have that flash drive that you can, save stuff on, because when it gets to 8/31, which is the next week 1 is just going to close out and you're not going to be able to go back in and get it. So it's the same thing with the quiz. So if it gets midnight, which is basically Monday morning now, and you haven't turned anything in, well, you're going to have a blank spot in your quiz slot, and I have to give it a 0 because there's nothing there. So just keep that in mind. Usually due dates, unless there's something else going on, each one of your due dates usually has a Sunday by midnight attached to it. Except when we get to week 5, when your fiction exam is going to be due midweek, and then your essay is going to be due toward the end of the week, just because we need to move on to poetry and that type stuff. But if you look, that's the only 2 things that are really due. You do have a little bit that you need to read about poetry, but you're not reading any new poems, that type deal. So just keep in mind, this is sort of how the deadlines will go for the rest of the semester. If there's something changes, I will let you know. But this would probably be your best friend as it relates to what does he want us to turn in, or what is due this Sunday, or what is due today, or that type deal. So just keep up with this. When in doubt, always use the checklist, use the syllabus. It will be helpful. And besides that, that's pretty much it. Again, I will come back probably next week. We will have another sort of a video about some of the dealings with 1102 as far as our lessons. And I think probably Wednesday we will try to do our first live lecture through Teams. And again, it's not mandatory that you show up. I will strongly suggest that you try to. I will try to make that one probably later in the afternoon, just because the way my schedule is. I'm here, there, I'm everywhere Monday through Thursday. So again, you can always reach out by phone or by email, and I look forward to working with everybody. So I hope you have a good day, and I will see you soon.